Pete Hegseth was apparently asked at a press conference, this European Security Conference, what concessions Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth are requiring of Vladimir Putin in order to negotiate some sort of peace with Ukraine. And this is a verbatim answer. This is exactly what he said. He said, well, that's, I would start by saying the arguments that have been made that somehow coming to the table right now is making concessions to Vladimir Putin outright, or that we otherwise, that the President of the United States shouldn't otherwise make. I just reject that on its face. What the hell? Yeah. So what's going on? How's this being taken over there?
I can presume how it's going to be taken over here. I can respond to what Hegseth has been saying since he's been on this side of the Atlantic, and that is that Ukraine is not going to play ball. Negotiations between Moscow and D.C., be what they may, will not resolve this conflict. Yeah. The Ukrainians will decide the resolution of this conflict, and they are damn sure they have conviction of that. I shrug my shoulders and I roll my eyes and I listen to the Secretary of Defense being Hegseth as opposed to Lloyd Austin, and I wonder where we are. And I am sorry to say this, and this is my personal opinion. I am not doing this as a reporter. I am doing this as an analyst and somebody who has lived in Ukraine for quite some time and covered this part of the world for quite some time. U.S. foreign policy is being dictated out of Moscow.
That's my take. I think, frankly, domestic policy is being dictated out of Moscow. I think that both Musk and Trump have been in regular contact with Putin. Putin wants to see the United States destroyed. And guess what? They're destroying the United States.
That's correct. And I tread cautiously here because I have been doing this for 20, 30 years. And I know what happens when I make declarative statements like we are being played by Moscow, that we are at war with Russia. And I know folks hate hearing that, but we are at war with Russia. And we are at war with Russia because Russia has decided they are at war with us, and we are not aware of it yet. It is not in our consciousness that we are currently in a hot war with the Russian Federation. And it is happening here in Ukraine, certainly, but it is also happening domestically within the United States. They have infiltrated our body politic. We are putting into positions of power people like Tulsi Gabbard and a number of different Kemp Paschal, go to as far as J.D. Vance, the vice president, and yes, go all the way up to the president of the United States. We are compromised. We have been attacked by Moscow, and it is effective, and it is working, and we are losing the war that is happening domestically within the United States of America. We're being attacked, Tom. We're being attacked. No short measure to it. We are under attack by the Kremlin, and there are willful, whether they are, useful idiots, fellow travelers, or indeed agents of the Kremlin. We are being attacked, and the appointments that the new administration are putting into positions of power undermine our security. They acquiesce to the Kremlin, and while Ukraine is the hot edge, the sharp point of the spear, make no mistake about it, the United States of America is under attack, and we are currently in a state of war with Russia, whether we like it or not, whether we like to persuade ourselves that we are not. I, having studied the Russians and lived in this part of the world and studied this part of the world for a very long period of time, this is not passive. This is not, these are not half measures. We need to wake up to the fact that the Kremlin, in coordination with a lot of members of the administration coming in, and this has been going on since Trump came down the escalator, and beforehand even, we need to wake up to this fact. This isn't just a domestic problem. This is an international problem. And the Kremlin is manipulating our body politic and attacking our body politic.
And they're doing it to the Germans, and they're doing it to the French, and they're doing it to the Brits, and the Swedes.
Yeah. No, we got to wake up.
Yeah.
And I've been saying this on your show for a very long time, and I wish I could say it more succinctly, and I wish I was more articulate about it, and I wish that people who listen to your show and the audience that you have kind of had the body of information that I have, and I'm grateful for people that are open to this perception. We got to wake up. This isn't a game. Our democracy is under threat. Western liberal democracy is under threat. We thought at the end of the Cold War that our system would go east. What has happened is that their autocracy and their corruption and their system of oligarchy has moved west.
Yep.
And the sooner we recognize that, and we're already in the 11th hour, we got to wake up to the fact that this isn't an abstract idea. This is really happening, and it is happening in our own country. Trump is, and I know people get really upset about this because of the faulty Mueller report, of all the efforts that have been done to dissuade Americans from recognizing this threat by minimalizing, by simply, paraphrasing the Brady Bunch for all intents and purposes, the whole, Russia, Russia, Russia. That is not a mistake. That is done purposefully to minimize the very real effect of Russian information warfare. They can't beat us on the battlefield. They need to beat us in our body politic, and they're winning.
Yeah.
They're winning. They're beating the hell out of us.
Yeah, I'm seeing it too.
And we need to recognize it.
I absolutely agree. All that said, Phil Ittner, what is the status of the war in Ukraine right now, or the Russian war against Ukraine, I suppose we should call it?
Well, look, on the ground in Ukraine, despite what folks would have you think, Ukraine is winning the war.
Which is why Putin is talking to Trump about, hey, let's end this war, right?
Right, and also talking directly between D.C. and Moscow and excluding Kyiv.
Yeah,
that's a massive problem. They are making advances. The Russians are making advances militarily in the Donetsk area, but they are not making the kind of advances that they need to make to actually win the war. They are not going to, quote unquote, denazify Ukraine, which is not to say that Ukraine is a Nazi state. When they say denazify, they mean to upheave the.
They mean to end the sovereignty.
They mean to
put a
end
Lukashenko back,
Ukraine.
in charge.
That's right. That's right. They want a puppet government in Kyiv. Now, if they don't get that, and if they don't get Odessa, which is the control point for the northern shore of the Black Sea, they will have lost this war, because it's all about naval power. For it's imperialism and it's naval power. And if they don't have Kyiv, which is the imperialism, and if they don't have Odessa, which is the geopolitical strategic power that would control their only warm water port, then they have lost this war. So they need to make more advancements than they are making on the battlefield currently. So if the war were to end today, they would lose this war. However, they could sell it to their own population if they are given guarantees that there is exactly what Pete Hegseth is going to Brussels and going to Munich and saying, which is to say, no NATO unification or partnership or being brought into the defense status of NATO. That the idea of 2000 and prior to 2014 borders, which is to say sovereign borders of Ukraine, that is no longer accessible. These are exactly what Moscow wants. And for Hegseth to come over here and say these things without even entering into negotiations, which is to say to surrender these major strategic goals of Moscow going into the negotiations. It's criminal. What are we getting in return? It is exactly what Moscow wants.
Yeah.
And so we need to recognize that we are really losing this war.
Yeah, this is the Sudetenland all over again.
And we are losing it not in terms of what's happening on the ground. We're losing it in terms of the smoky backroom deals that are being made that Hegseth and Trump want to have happen. The Europeans are recognizing that they need to step up. But I see that as a double-edged sword as well, because I think that Moscow ultimately would like to see a division between the transatlantic alliance. And I am seeing more and more that the Europeans are recognizing that America is a faulty partner, that it cannot be relied upon.
I got it.
And that sows division in the transatlantic alliance, which Moscow loves to see. Now, do I want to see a strong European defense alliance? Yes, I do. But I'd like to see it connected with America.